Warning, this episode contains discussion about sexual assault. If at any time you need support, please reference the links in the description. Hello and welcome to another episode of Emotional Support Water Bottle with Hannah and Ailish.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Ailish.
So I was at the grocery store and I wanted a little beverage. So they have a Starbucks in the grocery store. So I went up there and the people behind me ended up, I was waiting for a little while and the people behind me got their order first. And then I'm like, oh great, they forgot my order. But then the people came back and they're like, oh, you said, I don't know, Chrissy or whatever. And this isn't Chrissy's order. So I'm like, okay, that was my order.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're like, oh, I'm sorry, and then they gave her right order. And then just a little bit later, I got mine. And I just feel like they took the lid off and then put it onto my drink. I don't think they did that, but I just felt like they did because it's like, did you? I don't think you had
It was such a short time.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I don't think you had 2 chai lattes or chai tea lattes made.
Yeah.
And then once I got it, I didn't want to drink it anymore because it was like I couldn't get that out of my head.
Yeah.
And it was just really weird. And I don't know. They probably didn't do that. And the people seemed like it was like a teenager, like soccer gear on, and her mom.
So they probably didn't.
Right. And they probably weren't gross people, like if it would have looked like a crackhead or something.
Yeah, you would have been like,
right.
Okay, make me a new one.
Yeah. I drank it a little bit, but I just couldn't
get it out of your head.
No.
I would hope that if they actually did drink out of it, that they would have said, oh, we took a drink out of this,
right,
to the workers.
I mean, I definitely feel like she did and was probably like, it was a teenager. Teenagers don't like chai tea.
Yeah.
She was probably like, ugh.
Then they just gave it right back to you.
Like, this is not what I ordered. But
dump it in a new cup.
I know. I just felt like they just switched the lid. And I still did drink a little bit of it, but I just couldn't. It was all tainted. And then, it's like bubbly on top.
Yeah, you just kept thinking about the germs, the spit.
I know. And I'm sure they were clean people, but I just.
Yeah, that is.
I know.
Uncomfortable.
It was so weird.
And what a disappointment because
I know. I waited for a while and then it's not that big of a deal. It was just
were
annoying.
just saying the other day how you loved those chai tea lattes and
then nothing. And I wanted to get stuff to make my own. And then, but I was like, I want to have it one more time and make sure, I do want to get the stuff.
You get the flavor profile correct. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I do like this because I don't really drink coffee, even though I need something.
You do need to hop on that train.
Coffee just upsets my stomach. So anyway, I just wanted chai tea lattes. I'm like, well, at least that'll give me a little something. But
a little bit of, actually, I don't even know if
I looked it up. There's not
some
very
caffeine.
much. Yeah, like compared to like actual coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is caffeine in there.
Something to keep you going. Well, I have been thinking a lot this week. So I work 2 jobs. One is a full-time job and then one is a part-time job. And I've worked my part-time job. It's remote. I do it all from home. And I've done it for about 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. But just recently, like with us starting our podcast,
right,
and I've been doing taking on some different responsibilities in my full-time job for next year. And I'm just really thinking about, should I stay with my part-time job or should I quit that? But honestly, I'm kind of scared to have extra time.
Right.
Because if I have extra time, I'm just gonna like sit and think about things and feel like I don't know. I just feel like I need to be doing things, and I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we could do stuff together.
Yeah. I mean, it would give us more time for that.
I get off early Wednesday through Friday, so
I'll just come over.
Yeah. And, we can work more on the social medias of the podcast.
Yeah, that is tough. I know, that's what I'm thinking, because it is just more of a time commitment.
Right.
And it's not that I feel like I'm stretching myself super thin.
Right.
But I think in order to give 100% to everything.
Right.
I don't know. And I do enjoy the job, but just there's been changes that have happened probably in the last like year and a half or so that have just made me not enjoy it as much as I used to.
Right.
And I just don't know if it's worth it for me to continue doing it.
That is tough. Well, but with like summer and stuff coming up, I feel like it'll be nice to have the extra time. But I'm sure once like winter rolls around, you're going to be like, oh no, I want that job back.
I know. That's the hard thing, because nobody wants to do anything in the winter. Anyway, where we live, we get a winter, we get all seasons. So it's just kind of gross. And then, yeah, I'm just at home most of the time. And I don't want to just like sit around and watch TV. Like,
right.
I don't know. I guess I could read, but pick up a different hobby. I don't know. I've just been really evaluating that recently. And I think I'm just going to go through this summer and see how I feel, if things change. And,
right.
I don't know, just give it a few more months.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's nice to have the extra money, obviously, and just kind of something to do, but it's also nice to have extra
I know,
free time.
Just relaxing time instead of just constantly having to like think about doing stuff, or think intently about a task or something.
Right.
Like,
and I know you do it on the weekends a lot too, so at least you wouldn't have to worry about it on the weekends.
I know, that would be a plus. I don't know. I need to just mull it over a little bit more. Another thing that I've seen recently, I just saw this. I don't know if it just dropped or if I just now am seeing it, but I saw the trailer for the new season of the Kardashians, which I don't want to talk too much about them right now. And I have not been watching at all since they've moved to Hulu. But did you see the trailer?
No, I didn't watch the trailer.
Well, they're
boring.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think Scott is back in there, and like Scott and Chloe and even Kim and like Kendall, they all say things in the trailer that's like, there's just so much drama. If you thought this was going to be a relaxing season, you're wrong. Like, and the whole time I'm watching it, I was just thinking, nothing in this trailer
looks dramatic
at all. Like, and then I'm trying to think of things that have happened with them in the press.
Right.
When they would have been filming.
Right. And not much has been happening. No, we haven't really heard much about them at all.
Right. It's like the same stuff with Chloe and Tristan. Everything with Kim and Kanye, but that's kind of been told already.
Right.
There was Courtney got married. That's not dramatic.
Right.
Like, where's the drama?
I know. I feel like now that they're like the producers are having more say or whatever, it's so boring. Like, I tried watching, I think it was like the first season, and I think I did watch the whole thing. And then the second one, I just didn't even, it's like, I get that they don't want to look bad.
Yeah.
But that was the fun of it. Like, that's why they got called the Kardashians. Like, I just miss the old them. Like, I miss when Rob was on, which I understand why he doesn't want to be on, but him and Scott were such good friends.
I know.
And I just feel like everything's changed now too, and they have like kids and businesses, and it's just not the same frivolous and goofy stuff.
Like, I get it, because when I even think back on myself when I was in like my early 20s to now, it's like, I feel like I used to be more fun.
Yeah.
You know, I was more adventurous with stuff. Like you'd get into random little antics or have ridiculous stories. But now it's like, yeah, like I have a full-time job.
Right.
Like I don't really, you have kids. Like we don't have the same. And it's kind of like them too, even though they're like kind of significantly older than we are. And at different stages, it's like, it was kind of the same for them though, because in more recent years they have settled down more. Right. So I almost just wish that like they would not do the show anymore.
That's what I think too. It's like just stop at this point because we already hear about the headlines. Like nothing is new in the show anymore. Like back when they used to do it, you know, you maybe hear like a little bit, but you wouldn't actually hear about it until the show.
Right.
But now we hear about everything ahead of time. So it's like, why do I need to watch this random stuff that happened 6 months ago?
Right. And maybe I'm just misremembering or just completely incorrect, but I feel like a while ago when they filmed, it wasn't so long between filming and when episodes were actually released, because it seemed like, okay, we might hear rumblings of something and then maybe like a month later we would have the episode or something. It was not like, yeah, we filmed in the summer and now this is being released at the new year. Like, I don't know. And like you said, I can read everything about whatever drama on their social media or in news articles. Like nothing is held back anymore.
I know. And it's weird to think that Scott's going to be on it again. And even not until I saw where he was going to be back on it, I didn't even really realize he wasn't on it anymore. Like, I don't know. I was like, oh yeah, he wasn't in that. But I feel like for him and Courtney, they really did show so much of their relationship.
Yeah.
That I'm really surprised that they would even want to film together again.
I know. But honestly, I feel that Scott...
I know, he's so funny.
I know. And he really is... Like, if there was somebody out of the whole group that I would want to watch the show for, it would be Scott. Because
I know. That's probably why they brought him back in. Because he was funny. And, like, I feel like the girls now, it's like... They have to look perfect when they're sitting there. Like, there's no, I don't know, realness anymore. But I feel like Scott is good for reality TV.
Yeah, he is for sure. His just little comments and things, his funny perspectives. I know he is funny. But I don't know. No. I wasn't really planning on watching this season at all. No. But then when I saw that trailer, I was like... Nah. And especially since if we compare it to like the Vanderpump trailer that we just had to this, I'm like, okay, I'm let down. Like I am underwhelmed. Just you talking about drama doesn't mean there's actual drama happening. So yeah, I don't know. I also not finally, because I did it pretty quickly, but I finished Emily Ratajkowski's book.
Oh yeah, we did find out that you can say her name both ways, and then the Ratajkowska is the Polish way, but she still says it
Ratajkowski.
Yes, so we were saying it right from the other episode.
We just didn't know.
No.
But yeah, when Hannah, you first brought it up a few episodes ago, I am very conflicted. I
don't know if I've ever been so conflicted on a book.
About, a book or a story from anybody, really. It's just... Okay, so if I'm just breaking it down, like, just from format-wise, or not even anything about the actual content, I didn't like... how her voice sounded.
I know. Yeah, we listened to the book.
Yeah, we listened to an audiobook, which I did enjoy, but it was hard for me to listen to her voice. But I just felt like, I guess I understand that she was just trying to make it very like level, even.
Right, and very somber. Like some of the topics she were talking about were a little more serious, so I get like...
But it just for me almost sounded like she was bored.
Yeah, and I think that was like the vibe she was going for, but I've had some other celebrity memoirs or like books where they've been very good narrators with emotion and they get emotional during them and laugh and stuff. And this was definitely not one of those.
Yeah. And I don't even necessarily need it to be like such dramatic inflections in voice or laughing, crying, whatever. Like, I don't really need that, but just so she sounded at least that she was interested.
Yeah. It's like, this is
you wrote
work.
This.
Yeah. And I was listening to something earlier and she said she's been working on it for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you give a little more when you're reading it?
And I don't, this is me kind of being overly critical, I guess, but there were a few parts at the beginning where like the editing was poor.
Yeah, I did notice
it was so bad. And I was concerned about the rest of the book because I did not know how it was going to go.
Right.
Like, it was just very clear that they re-recorded stuff. And
I did notice
which
that.
I understand that happens, but they could have like tried to blend it in a little bit better.
Yeah.
And there were also like one part that really sticks out where she did get emotional, like she was getting choked up. Mm-hmm. And it kind of annoyed me. Like, I know that is so mean to say.
Which was the part? I do know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what the part was.
We don't even... It was more towards the end. I think it was when she was writing, like, that response to that one photographer.
Okay, yes.
And when she said like a certain part of it, she got kind of choked up. And I think the reason why it just kind of annoyed me was because she had gone through the whole rest of the book with just nothing, no emotion, no nothing. And then at this one part at the end, it was like she starts to cry a little bit. And I don't know, it kind of made me mad, which I know is just rude to say, but it just did. I also was thinking about just the whole vibe of the book. Oh, another thing that just annoyed me, how she would call her husband S.
It's like, we know who you're married to.
We know who he is.
And it's like, I don't know if she actually calls him that as a nickname or if she was trying to just like not say his name.
Yeah, it's like we all know his name is Sebastian.
Yes.
Like, we know that. Just call him Sebastian.
I know. I thought that was weird too. It was like Gossip Girl or something.
Right.
But in a weird way.
If it was a pet name, like you could have said, my husband Sebastian, who I call S.
Right.
Or
and
whatever.
then kept calling him S.
Yeah, but it was almost like she just didn't want us to know his identity, even though we all already knew.
I know. And I feel like she didn't really speak very like highly of her husband. I mean, she kind of like did and then didn't. And I like just the stories she had about her husband just didn't rub me the right way.
Yeah, they didn't paint him in a very good light.
And it's interesting now that they're divorced.
But when this was released, they were still married, right? Yes. They weren't separated. Yeah. Correct. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think this might have came out in like 2020 or 2021.
Yeah.
And
that was more recent that they got. Yeah. I don't know. I think from my point of view, it seemed like it just didn't seem like she had much self-worth. It seemed like she was a person who is actually very self-conscious, but also narcissistic at the same time.
Yes.
It puts pretty much all of her worth into her looks, and that seemed to be rooted from her parents and her upbringing.
Yes.
Which, when we had talked before I read the book, like you had mentioned that, where her mother said so much about beauty and how that was so important and everything. But it was, and obviously we're only getting like a certain part of the whole story, but it was weird because it seemed like her parents were supportive of her.
I know, that was confusing, but I feel like she thinks her parents were only supportive of her because she was attractive.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was just the only reason. I think they were happy she was attractive, but I don't feel like that was the only reason.
It was a shame, though, that they did put so much like emphasis on that, because obviously that isn't the most important thing.
No.
And I think that if she maybe would have had more self-worth from as a child,
Right.
then she might have made different career choices going forward in her life. I mean, I obviously don't know, but just she, like how she said that she completely like dissociates and becomes a different person when she does like nude shoots or lingerie shoots. It was like, okay, that like is not healthy behavior.
No, when she has talked about, because I was listening to some podcasts, that she is like in therapy now and she's understanding herself more. She talks a lot about how she's always looking for like control over situations and uses her body to do that. But then she realizes and feels so badly about herself because she can't actually ever get that control the way she thinks is the way she's trying to with her body. And so I feel like that makes her feel like garbage.
Yeah. It's so convoluted because as a woman and as a supporter of women, I am all for if somebody wants to, like, whatever they want to do with their body, it's their body. Like, they have the freedom to make those decisions. But the frustrating thing is that, like, she did make those choices, and then she's referencing that and acknowledging that in the essays that she wrote, and almost like having a little bit of self-loathing because of that. Right. But then she also is playing the victim a little bit. And in some ways she was a victim 100%.
Yeah, that's definitely what makes it so tough. But I mean, there was a story where she got paid to go to like the Super Bowl, and then there was another party. She got paid to go to something with Coachella, and it was like a party, and she acts really naive about it.
Right.
And it's like these people, and just because somebody's not, even if they're not expecting like sex or anything, you're still getting paid, and they want you to be there to help like entertain and everything. But I feel like she's like, then I had to entertain these people.
Right.
I thought I was just getting money, because that's what happens. And it's like, I mean, what did you expect? Not to be mean. And there was situations where she wasn't assaulted, but was still getting paid and didn't really want to be there. It's like, what did you expect?
I know. And it's strange too, because in some of those situations, she wasn't like a 16-year-old being manipulated.
Right.
And like she started very young in modeling. So by the time she was like 20, she kind of was more of a veteran as far as shoots and situations. So to hear her say things like you just referenced, like, oh, someone's going to pay me all this money and now they expect me to do XYZ. Or it's like, are you serious? Like, you're going to pretend that you don't know that about the industry?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
I know. And then there's a part where, but it's tough too, because she is so self-aware. And at one of those parties, there's like another Victoria's Secret model there who is probably Miranda Kerr, but
that's who I was thinking
she
too.
She doesn't say that. And she said at one point she was like dancing on the sky or whatever and pretending to drink and like throwing the shot like behind her so she doesn't actually drink it and stuff. And then she's like, I was sitting there thinking like kind of judging her, but then I'm like, how am I any different? Like, I'm here too. She's just playing the game better.
Well, yeah. And Miranda Kerr so she's 39 I think Emily Ratajkowski is like 32.
That's
maybe?
what I would guess, because I think she was 30 when the book came out.
So she's about she's in her early 30s. So there's years between them, but at the same time, not such a massive amount that you would be like, oh, she is so much wiser.
Right.
With how, and especially since Emily grew up in California,
right?
So much around the industry, and it even just listening to some of her experiences as an adolescent, not even a full-on teenager. I'm like, that is so much more than we ever experienced, or even I'm sure what Miranda Kerr experienced, not even living in America. So it was just kind of you can't play the innocent card, oh, I just didn't know, or oh, I was just so naive to it. You experienced a lot of things at a young age, so I don't think you should be saying this now when you're in your early 20s.
Right.
I don't know.
I know. I definitely had, and I kind of talked about this in the other podcast too, but I do feel like she thinks that this stuff happened to her only because she was attractive.
Yeah.
Where, no, this isn't just I feel like she thinks things are just an Emily problem, but this happens to all kinds of women.
Yeah.
And I just finished the new Pamela Anderson book. And she, I feel like those two, even Emily talks about Pam Anderson in the book, how they both have been kind of reduced to just their bodies, where in Pam Anderson's book, she seems to she kind of approached it in a different way. Actually, there is more to me than just my body. And I'm going to talk about all the things I love to do and everything. And she doesn't ever blame anything that happened to her on her beauty. It was just kind of I'm a kid and I look like a kid and I was still sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And, obviously she was sexually exploited with the sex tape. And I feel like she came at it more this just happened because people are terrible and I was well known. It wasn't because, well, I'm so beautiful, so all this stuff happened to me. Yeah,
and in the one photo shoot that Emily references where she was sexually assaulted, that's terrible that happened to her. But when she was describing the whole scene, and that's when Hannah brought it up in the previous episode where it was an overnight situation, the whole thing seemed very sketchy, and it's not either of us are trying to blame her for it, but it's just why did her agent send her there? Why did anybody make it seem like this was
okay to do? Yeah. Who was in charge of all this? And then she was given alcohol.
Right.
Which again, that's not her fault. She was just trying to be cool, basically, and get that validation and look cool to this guy, so that way he would want to take her picture and stuff.
But then when she is just describing everything, it's when he told me to put on this kind of lingerie, and then he told me to take my clothes off, and then he complimented my body, and it's this whole thing isn't just because you have this killer figure.
Right.
And then when he did sexually assault her, that was so traumatic for her, I'm sure. But she did kind of spin it as well, this happened to me because of the way I look and how beautiful I am. When in reality, I think it was more the situation that you were in. Right. You were alone. The makeup artist, stylist went to bed. Yeah. He's older. You drank a lot of alcohol. Yeah. You already had been taking your clothes off. It was the whole thing, not just the fact that you were so stunning.
Right. It was because you were in a situation like that. Not because it was her fault she was in that situation, but because she was in that situation. Something like that could have definitely taken place.
But I also kind of wish that she would have acknowledged a little bit more of things that she could have done differently.
Yes.
Like, I did not read Pam Anderson's book, but you just said that she kind of took ownership over things that happened to her in certain situations. Right. And it's like, you do, like, as a woman, especially a young woman who is in the industry where you're modeling, acting, whatever, like, even in business, like, you have to be very mindful of situations that you put yourself in or that you are put in, and you have to make yourself the number one priority.
I know, and you have to take, even in Pam Anderson's book, she would talk about there was a weird situation. Well, anyway, she insists, the guy was like, no, don't, just come alone, you know? And she was like, no, I'm bringing somebody from me, for me. And he went with her the whole time. And she actively made that choice because she knew this situation was getting sketchy and she did not want anything to happen to her. And I mean, it's tough because you don't want to be like, you shouldn't have to assume that something bad's going to happen to you when you're alone with somebody. I think that's why it's so tough.
I know.
And I think now she would probably, I mean, I don't feel like there was much reflection of that in the book.
Yeah.
But I feel like now she would, I guess there was a little bit. But I feel like now she would have, looking back, she's like, wow, that was really bad of me to be alone with this person.
And I guess and not that every single thing that somebody shares about themselves has to turn into a lesson for everybody else, but I think it would have been a more powerful message or a powerful listen if she would have been like, you know, when I think back on this time, I think about what I could have done differently to keep myself safe. Like, no one else is going to keep you safe. You have to, you don't want to be manipulated. You don't want to be taken advantage of. But that goes back to where I think it feels like she doesn't have a lot of self-worth and self-confidence. Right. And so it's like she wants the validation from men constantly, and she kind of puts everything else aside in order to get that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that too. I know me and you've talked about like trying to get more views for our podcast and like TikTok views. And we're like, should we just show our bodies? So not that we have Emily Rata.
No, we don't.
Rata bodies. But it's like, it almost to me feels like that's the easier way to go.
Yeah, I agree. And even when, I mean, she flat out says it. And when she's talking about the Instagram stuff,
it's like it's so easy for me to make money from my body. So I'm just going to embrace it. Even though I hate it, I'm just going to do it anyway so I can get money.
But what annoys me so much about that is just how contradictory the whole thing is. Yes. It's like she has some really insightful thoughts about just how society is and how social media is and what gets her money and, you know, whatever. But then she doesn't change her behavior. She like fully acknowledges it and is like, yeah, you know, I know that this is not what's best for me or whatever, but I'm going to post this selfie of myself half naked on Instagram because I know I'll get a million views.
She can't help it. Like she literally needs that type of validation.
Right.
And then, but she's aware that she needs that type
and I don't know. That's what, it's hard to like, it's just hard to even put into words how I feel about that. I just, after reading or listening to this book, like before I had said I'm kind of neutral on her, like I don't have any feeling about her like one way or the other, but after listening to this book, like I kind of sway a little bit more to the side of that I don't care for her that much.
I definitely are. And I think like she's trying to be like a cautionary tale, but it's not, but she keeps doing the stuff.
Exact same thing.
Right. And it's like, you should be able to like post a picture of you in your bikini or whatever. Like that's totally fine. But then don't talk about how it's tough.
But even when she and I haven't seen her recent stuff because I'm not on Instagram or anything, but when she would post something to promote like her swimwear line or something, it never even looked like she was promoting her swimwear line. It was like she would have, you know, showing her butt or not having a top on and barely covering, and then having this like sexy pouty face. And it's like, so you're being overtly sexual to sell bathing suits that shouldn't really even be a sexual thing at all.
No, it's yeah, wasn't there like a picture of her where she was selling her, was this her, where she was selling her swimsuit but she had her top off and it was just like the bottom, and it's like,
I think that was that a while ago, and I sent it to you, like this like, was months ago, and I was like, this could not even be for, like, I legitimately didn't know what this was for.
How is this a bikini ad when you don't have the bikini on?
Like,
you just have the bottoms on?
It's just, we all know that you're beautiful. You have an amazing figure.
Right.
It's just at this point, it feels like she's kind of just like rubbing it in our faces. Like, I'm going to write this book and say how everyone thinks I'm beautiful and wants to sleep with me and gives me all these compliments, and I can make money off of my body.
Yes.
Feel bad for me.
I was listening to a couple of podcasts that she was on, and I can't remember the one that she was on, but the way people talk to her, like other women to talk to her, where they're like, even a woman like you gets self-conscious, and it's like, so it's not just like her parents that are doing this, it's like people are just doing it to her face. And then I was listening to her call her daddy one. And this was when Alex had just signed her big deal with Spotify. So she just, you know, her interviewing skills were different. And one of the questions she asked was, so did you know from a young age that you were attractive?
Alex Cooper, come on.
What? Well, and this, the whole thing of it is like, there are other people that are attractive.
And I think that there are probably people that don't find her attractive.
Yes. So I agree. I mean, and beauty is so subjective.
Yes.
It's like, does she have a really good body? Yes. But would somebody else maybe think she was a little too skinny?
Yeah.
That could definitely be the case too. And she even said, like, sometimes she'll get like a weird comment. But it's like, you're not the only attractive person, and I really don't know if she knows that she's
and maybe going through therapy.
And this is coming from an ugly person.
Oh my gosh.
I'm calling other people attractive. You know,
you're
it's
not
like
ugly. Positive self-talk, please. But I don't even know where I was going with that because you threw me off.
I call myself ugly.
But I felt also that one part that I found really weird was when she talked about her childbirth.
Yeah.
Like, I almost felt kind of uncomfortable and really confused by the whole story.
Yes, I agree. I was kind of like I get what she was kind of trying to say. I was like, well, I had to trust my body to do this, I guess. And never let me down before.
For sure. But when she's like, and I have never given birth, so, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm master of this topic.
Right.
But for me, it was confusing when she's like, at home, my water broke, I'm on the floor, the contractions are coming one after another, and I'm convulsing. Right. And then we fast forward like many hours later and she's still hasn't had the baby yet. And I was like, just from a basic knowledge, I know that that's not exactly how like labor progresses. Maybe in that moment it felt like they were coming.
It was a little like weird. I almost thought she was gonna say she was having gonna have to have a C-section, but then never quite like got there. I can't remember everything.
It kind of felt like it was going, but at the beginning when she started, it sounded like she was about to give birth on her bathroom floor,
and then it was like, no, the baby hadn't come. I can't remember the story exactly. But I was like, I don't know where she's going with this.
She said I was crawling at the hospital. I was like up against the wall having she literally said she crawled through whatever part of the birthing ward or whatever. And I'm like, I know that we do keep those things locked down with like celebrity births, but
Right.
if this was really happening, I feel like some nurse would have said Emily Ratajkowski was climbing the wall.
Can you imagine if you were there giving birth to and you just see Emily Ratajkowski just like crawling around? Yeah, the story was a little, I don't know. I feel like she was trying to make it too artistic.
Yes.
Like you can just be having contractions.
Just talk about it normally. Yeah. And then the part that really kind of made me feel, I don't know. I just felt it was over sexualized kind of when she's like, I wanted to have a mirror. Yes. And then I remembered like the thought came to my mind about sex and how pleasure. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't think that you would have that thought when you're in the throngs of childbirth. Like,
I know it's like, I know some people do want to like see it with the mirror and stuff, but
it was just the way that she
was saying, yeah. I know, like it was too artistic. Like it is what it is. You're giving birth.
Right. And then she kept making it seem like she was having all these insightful thoughts while she was in labor. And I'm like, in going through like labor with you,
right.
like
I wasn't thinking much.
While you were on some medication, like you weren't having any insightful thoughts.
No, I wasn't. I was up in outer space.
You were saying some weird things, but they were not insightful. So that just was kind of a weird. It was just almost like, again, she was kind of curating that experience because it had to be something beautiful and sexy because she's beautiful and sexy.
Yes, I agree. That is totally where that was going.
It just felt weird.
I know. It was just really hard to like have her talk so much about how she didn't want to be used for her body. And then she almost uses herself for her body.
Yeah.
Like she uses her body to make money, but she's mad that that's the way she's making money. And
you could not do that.
No.
Like you literally could get any other job that you wanted.
Yes.
Even if you, like she started modeling from a young age, you could have quit.
Right.
Like you could have continued on in school, in art school, and become an artist if that's really where your passions lie.
Right.
It was almost just like she realized, hey, this is easy.
I know. That's what it almost feels that way. Not saying that like
everything she's gone through is easy.
Right. But it does feel like it's like, well, this is making me a lot of money. And she kind of even says that she makes a lot of money, way more than she would make doing something else. So it's like, so you're really benefiting from everything you're doing that you hate that you're doing. Right. And honestly, when I think of her, I don't even think of her as a model. I think of her as an influencer.
Me too.
Just because, and I know she's like acted in a couple movies and stuff, but the way she does things is very influencer-y. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but I do know that she like walks runways and everything. I've never really taken her super seriously as like even as a model. I mean, she never was like a full-on runway model because she's too short. Her acting was pretty much non-existent. Like, I don't even really remember her in Gone Girl, to be honest. Like, I forgot she was in it until she brought it up. I know, I forgot that too.
The other thing that, like, kind of, I don't know, I could relate to this because this situation happened to me in college. But I'll explain what her situation was. Just when she was at a party with her husband at the time, and, you know, someone asked her what she's been up to, and she said that she was writing a book, and then the person acted surprised.
Right.
And what happened to me in college was I was taking a German literature class, and it was about Faust, and my one teacher saw that I was reading that for my assignment for class, and he was like, oh, I never would have expected you to be taking a class like that. And it was just like a judgment that he made based on whatever, like what he knew about me or thought he knew about me or how I looked or whatever. So I could kind of understand how she would have felt maybe in that moment. But the difference is for her that she never made it known to other people that she had other interests.
Yes, I agree. Yes, that's what was the big difference between her and Pam Anderson too, where Pam Anderson could have wrote a book like she did, but instead she went, no, there's way more to me than just my body and my nudity and stuff. And she kind of went the other way and only talked about her body. So how are we supposed to... That's what's so tough too, because just because somebody only posts pictures of themselves all the time doesn't mean they're not smart or they don't have other interests. But she should understand too that that's the way it comes across.
Right. Or just how would people know?
Right.
I mean, they can't just read your mind and know everything about you without you telling them.
Exactly.
Like, I didn't even know that she was in art school for a period of time. I had no idea. But it's because that's never been talked about to my knowledge, or never something that she had put on social media or whatever.
Right. Instead of her showing that on social media, she is just showing her body.
Right.
So how can she expect, like you said, for somebody to know that about her? Like if I had a social media and just posted pictures of my body, I wouldn't expect people to know that I'm trying to have a podcast or that
you enjoy reading mysteries.
Right.
Like
it's like how they know.
Right. And maybe her closer friends and family, they do know those things about her, but the people that she was referencing at the party were not close friends and family. They were just people that she is around in the industry or that were her husband's friends or acquaintances. So why would you... I don't know. That just was frustrating. Instead of her in that moment just being like, yeah, actually, like I am really enjoying writing this book. I'm writing, it's memoirs, it's short stories, it's essays about my life. She was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, they acted confused when I said I was writing a book. Like they were surprised, like I couldn't even do it. You gave no context.
Like, well, yeah, I don't expect random people to be writing books anyway.
Or what kind of book? Like you didn't even say.
She, on the one podcast she was on, they asked her like, it was something like, what do you when people ask what you do, what do you say? And she goes, well, now I can say that I write a book and that I have a podcast now. And and then the girl's like, oh, you don't really say anything about the other stuff. She's like, no, I mean, I will like get into it. Like, I don't really talk about the modeling thing to people. And I just found that really like odd because it's like, I feel like people, if they don't know her, haven't seen her before, how would they know that she had so much money just because she wrote a book? Or like, why is anyone reading her book? Well, because she already is famous.
Yeah, why are you relevant? Why are you famous?
Yeah, she's like, no, I don't really say that. And I was like, it's just so like,
she says things and does things that I feel just kind of makes her unlikable.
Yes.
And again, I think it kind of comes from just how she feels about herself or her insecurities. But it just doesn't come across in a way that as another woman, I want to throw all my support on her. Yes. And I know that sounds really judgmental, and I don't mean it to sound so like negative.
Right.
But that just is the vibe that I get from her.
I know. And then it's like, is there something wrong with me that I'm like judging her? But it's like, I feel like I have tried to get to know her as much as I can in like not actually meeting her type of way. And I'm not really into what she's putting out there. Like even in the podcast I was listening to, it just like, I don't know. There just wasn't anything there.
Yeah. I felt really, and I haven't listened to her podcasts in full. I've listened to clips of them. But I felt from the book that she was trying to make it seem so insightful and deep and artistic, but what she was talking about was actually very surface level.
Yes. Yeah, there is. And I feel like she, like, even on the podcast and stuff, she was like, I've had a lot of sex workers on, and I really want to talk about those types of things. And I like to hear about those different perspectives of that stuff. But I feel like she still doesn't really get to the meat of anything with that.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that she can find what she's looking for in herself. I think it's really sad.
I do.
When people have such kind of a internalized self-hatred for whatever reason. It just feels, maybe it's not as like dramatic as it comes across.
But it's like the way it's coming across, though. It's like, I don't think this girl's happy. I don't think she likes herself that much. And it almost seemed like she wasn't really happy in her marriage.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Just think overall, the book could have been a very great opportunity to just shed light on some things within the industry, or even calling out her insecurities and things that she feels about herself, and just like things that other women can relate to. And from her book, I didn't feel like I could relate to hardly anything.
No, I agree. And I feel like she
wanted it to be that way.
Yes, she wants it to be there, but she also still doesn't want anyone to know what her insecurities are, because then maybe they'll point it out. The only thing she would kind of say is like her nose.
Yeah.
But it's like, come on, that's your only insecurity.
Right.
And
it's almost like she wanted it to just be all about her and not have it that anyone could share in her experiences at all.
Yes, I don't think I wish she would have acknowledged that stuff like that happens to other women. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the game of who had it worse and stuff, but there are a lot of people who have had very bad experiences like her, but I feel like she doesn't get that.
I almost wanted it to be, this is the way things are. I use my body for money.
Yes.
And I'm owning it. Like, I know this is
I
really
feel like
bad, but I do it.
Yes, it's like she wants to say that, and she was trying to say that.
But she wasn't there.
Right, and she didn't want to feel like happy about it, or like say that I'm happy about it. But I would have much rather had her own that in an honest way. Right,
I would have rather it been that, or her saying like, don't fall into the traps that I fell into. Like, have a kind of be a cautionary tale, like go one way or the other.
Right.
But trudging down the middle awkwardly.
Yes. And I feel like her more message was it's hard to be this beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to be me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean,
okay, but
yeah. I was listening to her podcast with Chloe Cherry on there, and she, if you don't know, we used to work in the porn industry, and she actually, I almost liked more the way she came across, because she was like, I loved it. I loved doing it. I made way more than anybody else my age was making at that time. And she was just like, I just had a good time, and I don't have any bad experiences. And obviously other people have come out and said they've had very bad experiences in the porn industry.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that somebody shared and just like took ownership of it and didn't have all this regret that I feel like a lot of women experience when they are like an Emily Ratajkowski or a Mia Khalifa. And they're like, gosh, I made so many bad decisions and I got used and abused. And it was just nice to hear like the other side. Yeah,
because like I said towards the beginning, if you're going to own it and if that is how you're making money, then more power to you.
And it's like it's like, don't feel bad.
Right. Or I just
Or if you do feel bad, like talk about it in an honest way. I guess that's
just
what
be
we're saying.
honest about it and then change your behavior.
Yes.
And she hasn't changed anything.
No, it doesn't seem that way.
So I don't know. I think it was.
I guess for the book overall, it's a good discussion.
Yeah, it brings up forward a lot of discussions that I still don't fully know if I'm articulating how I'm feeling correctly.
I know, that's all. It's like my head is so back and forth on every topic that she talked about.
Right. Like, I don't know. There were so many things in there that I was just like, oh my God, like really?
I know, it would be interesting to have like a big group of women from all different backgrounds talk about this book.
And I wish that I could actually meet her and have a real conversation with her.
Ask her real questions.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll get to interview her.
Hopefully she doesn't listen to this episode.
She's like, heck no. No, but I do have sympathy for her, but
it just, if we're thinking about like, we're in 2023, we're all moving forward into a more body positive society, and it just felt like her book was kind of stuck in a different time.
It was.
Where it was just like, yeah, I lost 10 pounds and that's how I became famous. And I kept the weight off.
And she actually says that.
Yeah, she literally says that.
She got the flu, lost 10 pounds, and then all of a sudden people thought she could be a model, actually.
So she kept the weight off. So it was all about her weight.
It's like, what?
And she also acknowledged, like, there are times where I put more weight on and I like how I look, but then I lose it again because...
I know. It was like, can we kind of dive into that a little bit? Like, is there an eating disorder here? Yeah, because she would, like, talk about, like, oh, I was 100 pounds and... going through a divorce or whatever. I'm like,
I never booked so many shoots.
It's like, can we like dive into that a little bit?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I just look better skinny.
I know. That's all she would, Like, and I got this great modeling spread with this huge magazine. I don't know. Boy. That was one of the most conflicting books I've ever come across. But you know what was weird? Having it be written by her, allegedly. Yes. I mean, I think she wrote it, but someone else could have fully edited and changed things.
Right.
It, to me, almost didn't even seem like it was kind of like a biography. Like, it felt like a work of fiction.
It did.
Like,
it didn't feel like true stories.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think if I was going through my life, I could come up with like story, like details like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Just all the flourishes and dramatics of each story, each encounter that she had 15 years ago. Like, I don't remember the details of things that happened that long ago.
It just seemed like if you were at like an open mic, like poetry slam or something, and these were just like, it almost felt like poetry, and I would have liked more real, I guess.
Yeah, it felt, again, very like curated, very artistically done. So it just didn't come off super genuine.
No, and I think it'd be interesting for her to then maybe like rewrite this book or like this type of book as she, like, in another 10 years.
Maybe she just, isn't ready to fully dive deep into how she feels, which I appreciate that. I respect that too. Like, and if that's her boundary, that's her boundary. And, but then it's just kind of like, why did you put out a piece of work that
you weren't really fully ready to be vulnerable? And obviously she talked about vulnerable things, but not in the way that was genuine.
Right. Kinda. Yeah.
Oh no, it was interesting. I mean, you should still read it.
I
think us about it.
As a woman, like, I think it's a very interesting read. It's very thought provoking. And if other women read it, I think you would have very good conversations with other women in your life.
I know. And some women might be able to relate to it more than others.
Yeah.
So,
So, well, that was, I didn't think we didn't really intend for our entire podcast to be about Emily Ratajkowski's book, but there's
a lot to unpack.
There were so many things to talk about with that, and we honestly could go on even longer.
I still have feelings.
Yeah, and just going off of it, like talking more about body image, which we'll have to do in another episode. Mm-hmm. Not just focus on her, but talk about just body image in general and society.
Well, with that being said, this is the start of a little book club series.
Yes.
And so we're hopefully going to be doing that monthly. So if you have any book recommendations, let us know.
Yes. And in our next episode, we will have a new book chosen.
Yes.
And we'll let everybody know. And then we'll probably just do them either at the end of every month or, the beginning of the month, depending on
when this
where things
comes
falls.
Up. Yep.
Yeah.
This week I am going to recommend, I've been deep, it's starting to be tornado season.
Yes.
So I've been deep in the tornado lore of everything. But I was thinking about there was a tornado in Ohio, in Xenia. Mm-hmm. Xenia. And there was a movie called Gummo. And I used to watch this movie so much.
I have never heard of that movie.
It's a very obscure movie. Okay. It's actually Harmony Korine. So like Spring Breakers.
Oh, okay.
It's nothing like Spring Breakers.
Okay.
But it takes place after this tornado that happened in Ohio. And it's just a bunch of nonsense that happens. But it's kind of like disturbing. But I just love it so much. It's just so Midwest. And like, I don't know. It's really weird, but it just follows these weird people around after this. Like there's these two boys that are like out hunting cats.
What the heck? Is it fictional?
It is fictional.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like it takes place. So there's like all these people are trying to like find something to do because this tornado had ripped through. And like,
so we resorted to hunting cats.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is just so weird, but
Where
I just
can we
love
watch it?
Honestly, I don't know if you have a Fire Stick.
If we get into like the deep darkness of YouTube, we might be able to find it.
You might be able to. I don't know. I'm not explaining it well. I just love that movie for some reason.
What did you say it was called?
It's called Gummo.
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 Okay. All right.
It's a fun one.
Be on the lookout for that. If Hannah can find the link, we'll add that in the description.
I can find it anywhere. I used to watch it so much. I haven't watched it in a couple of years, but I forgot about it until I was looking up all the tornado stuff, and I was like, wait, that movie that I love.
Movie night. My recommendation is just about skincare. So I have combination skin, which is where my skin will get very dry, usually in my T-zone, like after I wash it. But then throughout the day, it will get very oily. So something that has worked really well for me is Dr. Jart Ceramidin cream. And I would recommend this to a whole plethora of people, different skin types. It just makes my skin so hydrated. Even through like the coldest winter, my skin feels unbelievable. And it's not cakey and dry and disgusting and cracked. Like, it is so nice. And you can use such a tiny amount and it goes such a long way. And the 1 tube lasts so long. So I would highly recommend that.
I know. I can't wait to use like skincare again. I'm like so basic right now because I'm breastfeeding and I was pregnant, and I'm just really weird about that. Like I don't want to use anything.
Yeah.
When so my skincare is so basic, but I just can't wait to use like retinol.
Oh my God. I've been going hard on retinol recently.
I was, and then I started trying to get pregnant. So then it was like, oh, I'm going to put that away.
Maybe.
But it's like, nobody wants to experiment when they're pregnant. Be that person that gets any of those products approved for pregnancy.
Kidding.
But
maybe one episode we can talk about our skincare routines and just different things.
Self-care.
Yeah, self-care things, because that's something that's really important to both of us.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to find us on Spotify or anywhere else where you listen to your podcasts. Again, we'll be coming to YouTube shortly.
We really are going to do it.
Yeah, we promise. We need to work a couple things out first, and then you'll find us recorded video on YouTube. And yeah, find us on TikTok as well, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.